Okay, so in this video, we're going to go through an example of how we would answer a comparative advantage multiple choice question. We can see here that we have two countries, A and B, producing two goods, wheat and wool. Now, for the purposes of multiple choice, we want to try and eliminate as many possibilities as we can. So I can see here that points A and points B both ask us about comparative advantage, which we can't actually be sure of with the amount of information that we are given at the outset. Point C, we're talking about absolute advantage, so we probably can figure this one out. So let's have a look. Absolute advantage in wool production, country B. Well, we can see here quite clearly that country A has a higher output of wool compared to country B. So we actually disregard point C here. Now, point D, a comparative advantage in the production of both wheat and wool. Now, for the purposes of this exercise and the opportunity cost, it's fair to assume that a country will not have comparative advantage in both goods. So I'm willing to say that, we can probably disregard this point as well, which leaves us with two options, either A or B. So what we can do is we can actually look at some calculations to determine opportunity cost for both of these goods and therefore comparative advantage. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to determine the opportunity cost of producing wheat for country A. So in other words, how many units of wool do I need to give up to produce 1 unit of wheat? That's what we talk about in terms of relative costs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this wheat, and we do country A, country B, wheat and wool. I want to convert wheat into 1 unit by dividing it by itself, so 1 wheat. Now I need to do the same thing to determine our opportunity cost of wool. So I'm going to divide wool, which is 400, by 650, which will actually give me 0.6 units of wool. So what this is telling me now is for every unit of wheat that I produce, I need to give up 0.6 units of wool. Now we can try and figure out the opposite in terms of how much wheat we need to give up for the production of wool. Again, I'm going to divide wool by itself, which gives us 1 unit. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide 650 by 400, which should give me 1.6. What this information tells me now is that for every 1 unit of wool, I need to give up 1.6 units of wheat. If we take a look at country B now, I'm going to go through the exact same process. So country B, units of wheat, I'm going to divide by 600, which gives me 1 unit. Then I'm going to divide 200 by 600, which gives me a third. And just for the sake of keeping things consistent, I'll just say 0.33 recurring. Opposite for production of wool, so 1 unit of wool, divide 200 by itself. I'm going to divide 600 by 200, which gives me 3 units of wheat. So we can see here that for country B, 1 unit of wheat. To produce 1 unit of wheat, we need to give up a third of a unit of wool. And to produce 1 unit of wool, we need to give up 3 units of wheat. Now, when determining comparative advantage, we're looking for whoever has the lower opportunity cost, okay? So whoever has the lower opportunity cost, that means that their relative costs or their costs of production for that good will also be lower. And if your costs of production are lower, then really you should specialize in production of that good and then trade with another country. So pretty simply, what we're going to do is we're going to see who has the lower number. So for production of wheat, pretty clear that country B has a lower opportunity cost because it only costs them a third of a unit of wool to produce 1 unit of wheat compared to country A, who who costs 0.6 of a unit. Having a look at wool then, it is quite clear that the low opportunity cost is for country A, so they actually have the lower relative costs of producing wool. So for every 1 unit of wool they produce, that it costs them 1.6 units of wheat, whereas for country B, every 1 unit costs them 3 units of wool. turning back to the answer for the question here, does country B have a comparative advantage in wheat or wool production? Well, we can see here that country B quite clearly has the advantage in the production of wheat, which means